Hi guys, it's Claire. I'm back with a card making process video for you, and I'm actually going to be showing you today how to make these two cards here, which are the two cards that I done at my last card making workshop. So my paperettes have made these cards. One of the ladies actually couldn't come along for the workshop, so she requested that I put a video up so that she could copy this and do it at home herself. So they're beautiful, beautiful cards. Obviously the main thing that we're showcasing is the Pretty Pines die set from Stampin' Up. And these are all the other bits here that we're going to be using. So yeah, two lovely A6 size cards. Now in this pile here is everything that we're using. So as I say, we've got the Pretty Pines Thin Lips dies. We've got an oval Spellbinders Nestability. This is from the label Vintage Labels 4 set. My Misty tool. I've got some pearls. At my workshop I actually didn't use self-adhesive pearls, we stuck them on ourselves. I just had loose pearls and we stuck them on, but just for doing this video I'm going to use self-adhesive because it'll be easier and quicker. We've got the My Favourite Things Grand Holiday Greetings sentiment sets. Stampin' Up Real Red ink pad, Distress inks in Gathered Twigs Evergreen Bell, and obviously the tools, and then the Stampin' Up corner rounder. So as I say, we're going to make two cards. Move all this to one side, and yeah, they're really, really pretty, nice cards, gorgeous colours. This is this colour is Stampin' Up Emerald Envy, which is a new one of their in colours, which yeah, it's just absolutely lovely. It works really well with the pool party and the pop of red on there. Okay, so we'll start with this one, which is card 1. And I've pre-die cut everything, so let me just pull this over so you can see. I've cut everything already that we needed. So as I say, all the leaves, the colour green is all this Emerald Envy. We've got two bows. All these dies are in that same die set. Let me just pull that back in so you can see again. So the leaves, you've got large, medium, small. We need 5 large, and then it's 3 medium and 3 small. 3 of the little like the mistletoe leaves, these ones here. We've got 2 different styles. I just done a mixture of the 2. We've got 2 of the pine cone bases, which is this one here. 2 of the pine cone sort of tops, or the detailed part, which is that die there. You have got other ones as well, they do it slightly differently, but I've used that one there. 2 of the little sprigs, sort of the mistletoe berry sprigs, which is this here. They're cut from crumb cake. This was chocolate chip. And then in real red I've cut the 2 bows out, so obviously you've got both dies in there for the bows, a large and a small. So that's it. I mean, assembling the card is actually pretty easy. I mean, this is the bit that takes the time, is die cutting this stuff, and even that, you know, it's not that tricky, but once you've got this done it comes together quite quick. Okay, so as I say, we'll start with card 1. So I've just got a ready-made card base, which is just an A6 white card base. We're going to fold that in half and bone fold. I've got a piece of pool party cardstock, which I have cut down to, it's 14.3 by 10 centimetres, so it fits on there with a nice little 5mm gap all the way around the edge. And I've also cut down a piece of white that's 5mm smaller, so it's 13.8 by 9.5. Okay, so that's the base of our card. Now on here I want to stamp my sentiment, so I'm going to pull in my Misty tool. Oops, I have to work with it up this way. I'm not sure that there's a right or wrong way, but for me this just feels the right way of doing it. Hold my piece of card in place. You can see that the real red stained these sentiment stamps, but obviously they still work perfectly. But red is you know, is known for staining, but it's fine, it's not a problem. Pop that on there, pick that up with the door. And this may not stamp perfectly first time, which is obviously why the Misty is so perfect for this. I mean, it's come out okay, but if you look at the one that I've done previously, it is a little bit nicer stamped. And I think I stamped that maybe 2 or 3 times. Go over again. There you go, and that's perfect. A lot more depth to the colour and a lot nicer. I'll just clean off my stamp. And I'm using my absorber cloth to clean this off. I've talked about this before. I picked it up in America. You can get it in sort of a Walmart type supermarket shop, and it's sold in the car cleaning section of the supermarket, but it's really nice absorbing cloth basically, so you just have it damp and it cleans off your stamps perfectly. As I say, this is stained on here now, but it is cleaned off. There's no wet ink on there. Anyway, so I've got the front of my card. So we're going to flat stick that onto this piece of Pool Party and then onto the front of the card. Now if you want, you can do this raised on foam pads or on a piece of chipboard like I always do, but I'm just going to flat stick this. I would normally use my Scotch gun because I do think that this is a lot better. I always use this, but I'm actually out of tape for it. This one's dead and I've got some on order and it's not here yet. So I'm going to have to use my glue. My glue of choice at the moment is the Aleene's Tacky Glue. I love the Stampin' Up! Tombow adhesive. Just trying to see if I've got one to show you. I'm sure you know what it looks like, but let me grab one out. The Tombow Monomote liquid glue is my favourite, but this actually is really good. I picked it up at a show not so long ago. I'd used it in the past as well, but I'm finding that I really like it. And the best thing about it is the new cap style that it comes with now. It stands up that way all the time, so your glue is always sort of ready to go. So yeah, so I'm just using this because it's all I've got. As I say, I would be using Scotch if I had it, but this is fine. But yeah, so just stick that on there, straighten it up. The good thing about using a wet glue, obviously you get a little bit more time to move things around and make sure it's nice and straight, and then stick that onto my card base. Make sure my card base is up the right way. As we all know, we've all done that, made a card and then found out that we've stuck it onto the base upside down. Okay, so that's the basic part of our card base done. Okay, next thing we need to do is pop on here some of our leaves that we've got, our pine leaves. So we've got 1, 2, 3 large ones. These obviously I'm going to trim these a little bit in a second. We've got 1 medium and 1 small. So we're just going to stick these down something like that, just a little cluster coming from that top left corner, and yeah, just have them however you want them so that it looks pretty. Now I don't want to put glue all over these. I'm just going to pop a tiny bit of glue just at the top here and hold it down. So this still is free floating, but it looks nice. It adds dimension, it pops up, it moves a little bit, and it just looks good. So back with this glue, a little bit on here, this over this side, and pop one something like that. Now this one I think I want to trim down a little bit, so I'm literally just going to break a tiny bit off of the end of it. I still want it to be the thicker sort of pine branch or leaves, but I do want it a little bit shorter, so I'll take that bit off the top and use it a bit shorter. A tiny bit of glue, pop that, something like that. Another large one. Do I want to keep this forward? I think I'll have it quite long coming across like so. I mean, you can see how simple this card is to make. There's really nothing too technical about it. The dies have done the hard work for you, really. They've made it super easy to make a really pretty card. And my medium size. And then finally for these I'm going to stick on my small one like that. You don't want that, actually looks a little bit too perfect. You don't really want it to look too perfect. You want it to look quite natural. Okay, that's that for a minute. Next thing we're just going to pop on there is your mistletoe sort of leaves, and I am going to ink these a little bit with the Evergreen Bough distress ink. Now you could have done that with these leaves as well, and to be honest, when I first made the card I did do that, but I found that you didn't need to. It didn't really show a lot. It shows up more if you added this, make this a little bit darker so that it stands out and pops from the leaves. Again, it's not, you know, it's not a massive difference, but it's just a little something. Just gives it a little bit more difference in colour and a little bit of depth. Oh, pop a tiny bit more on there. I'm going to have that coming down somewhere like that. Okay, leave that all aside just to dry for a sec while we assemble our pine cones. So we've got 2 tops, 2 underneath, so as I say, crumb cake, these were cut from, and this is chocolate chip. And we're going to again use our ink to go around the edge. So you almost want these looking a little bit messy. Okay, so I've got my 2 pine cones done. Then I'm just going to stick the smaller bow on top of the bigger bow. So obviously a tiny little bit of glue in the middle and then one on top of the other. And leave that to dry for a while. While the bow's drying, these should be stuck together. I'm going to pop some foam pads on the back of here. So I've got my Stampin' Up! Dimensionals. Just going to pop one's plenty, just in the middle of there. Bend them a little bit to give them a little bit of shape. You don't want them to look too flat and perfect. Peel off the foam pads. And then just pop those on your card wherever you want them to be, something like that. Now your bow obviously is going to go in that top left corner. I do want to shape that a little bit, so again it doesn't look too flat and too perfect, so I'm just bending that up with my fingers just to give it a bit of shape. And this, you can either use a bit of glue, wet glue again, and stick it down, or you can pop a tiny bit of foam pad on the back, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to grab my my dimensionals and just snip off a teeny tiny little bit from around the edge and pop that underneath, just so it's raised a little bit, which helps. Obviously those pine cones are raised, so making this raised sort of makes it sit a little bit nicer really. And that's it. And that glue that you can see there will dry clear, as I say, so you won't notice it when it's all dry. But that is it, card number 1 done. Really, really easy, really pretty, a lovely card to give at Christmas, like easy to give to anyone really. And yeah, gorgeous card. So that's our first one done and dusted. Moving on to card number 2, let me just have a quick tidy up. This one I think is actually even easier. So again, a normal card base. We're just folding that in half, like we've done before. Now here we want to round the corners, the bottom corners. Let me just show you the card again quickly. So we've rounded the bottom corners and on here as well. So to round the corners we use, well, any corner rounder would do, the corner chomper if you've got it. I've just got this one to hand, so it's the Stampin' Up! It's the one they sell for Project Life corner rounder. Pop that in. So all 4 bottom corners of the card. The pieces of cardstock that I've cut down ready to go, we've got Pool Party and white again, and the measurements are, let me just check for you. The Pool Party is 12.5 by 9, so that means that this is going to be 12 by 8.5, so it sits in there perfectly. Again, I always like a 5mm gap around the layer, so I think that looks nice. Round off the bottom 2 corners. And then flat stick those together. And then I am going to raise this into the middle of my card, So foam pads would work perfectly, but I want to do it, as I always do, either using just an old bit of chipboard. So I just happen to have, you know, this is an old, like a coaster thing, you know, like a pub coaster. I have had them absolutely years. I think I picked them up at a show, and I'm just going to stick that on the back there. You could use an old bit of chipboard or a bit of fun foam, anything, just to give it some dimension. I think this is nice, especially if you're going to be sending the card. It helps it stay a bit flatter. Right, if you pop foam pads in there, it does tend to warp a little bit and get a bit squished, whereas this helps it stay nice and solid and flat. It also gives good weight to the card, which is always nice as well. Always feels nicer if you've got a heavy card rather than one that's just flimsy and bendy. And then we're going to pop that down. Just lift that up so I can see if it's straight. There we go. That's good enough. Okay, pop that to one side while we stamp our sentiment. So I'm grabbing the Misty again. We've got another piece of white cardstock. Oops. Back to the same sentiment set again, but this time it's the Have a Holly Jolly Season. Exactly the same as what we just done before. Pop that in the middle. Pick it up with the Misty. Use the Stampin' Up! Real Red ink. Just to ink that and stamp that. Do it once, it's quite good, but just want to go over it again. Make sure that we get a really good stamping. Perfect. And then I'm actually going to die cut that with that oval die that we had. So as I say, it's a Spellbinders die. It's from the Labels 4 set. I'm going to die cut that. Just clean my stamp off. Okay, could go back over to the die cutting machine. I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, so I've cut that out. So pretty, really, really nice sentiment. Again, I want this raised, so we're going to pop, we do actually want to use foam pads on here rather than use something solid like the chipboard or something, because we've got to tuck all those leaves under, so we want a little bit of space where the foam pads are in the middle and sort of at the bottom left and top right, but we want this without foam pads, if that makes sense. So we want, as I do it, it'll make more sense to you. 3 foam pads going down the middle, 1 here and 1 here. So you can see as I pop that on there, I haven't got foam pads in the way where my leaves are going to tuck under. I'm not going to stick that on just yet, I'm just going to have it ready to go. Back to the card base. Okay, so now we need one of the large leaves again. So same as we've done before, just a little bit of glue at the bottom. And having got this going off towards the top left. Another large one, and that one will be coming down to bottom right. Oops. I want them to go just outside the edge of the card, but not too much that it's going to be a problem and won't get into the envelope, but just enough that it, you know, it hangs over. This is my medium size. I'll pop one of those about there, and then the other medium will be sort of opposite that. And the small size. Oops, goes up that way. And this one comes down. Okay, leave that to dry for just a second and get our two sort of mistletoe leaves, again with the evergreen bough ink, just to stress around the edges a little bit. Oops. And then we're going to get our two little sprigs that we've done. We're still leaving that to dry. Everything's sort of ready to go. Our two teeny tiny little sprigs, and we're going to pop berries on there, pearls on there. So as I say, I'm using these self-adhesive ones. At workshops we just used, you know, regular ones where you had to stick them on, but whatever you've got, and you know, whatever you've got to hand will be fine. I don't know if to go the big size. How many I've got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I'll go the bigger size. So I'm just going to pop those onto every little sprig there. I'm actually only going to do these two sprigs here. We're going to chop this bottom little branch we actually chop off and don't use. So I'm just going around the top. Okay, give them all a push down. And as I say, we're going to snip off this tiny little, the bottom of this branch. We don't need that one on there. Same again with this one. They look so sweet, those little sprigs of berries. Okay, and now we're going to start assembling. So your leaf should be dry now. Peel off your foam pads off the back of your sentiment and pop this in place. Looks good. And then we're going to slip these bits under. I like to stick that down first so I know where to sort of pop everything in and where's going to look good. So I'm popping in my little leaves, coming out at each side, so one on the right. Oops, just smudged there. I'll get that off in a minute. And one on the left, like so. And then the same with their little branches that we've done, we're just going to slip them in underneath. Now these are going to go, they're going to tuck in and lay on top of our leaves, but you will need to cut off a little bit more of that, of the branch there. A little bit of glue, tuck that under. And the same again for that bottom bit there. Okay, now I've just, on my finger I had a tiny bit of glue, so I'm just going to grab my adhesive remover and hopefully I can neaten that up and get rid of that. Just about. If not, we might have to add a little pearl or something to cover it up, but I think it's going to be okay. There you go, it's livable, it's okay. And that's it. That's our cards done. So we've got now two of those. You can see the difference between the pearls I used. One were a more pearly colour and these were a white, but either way it works. And then these two as well. And that's it. So I hope you've enjoyed that this card making video. As I say, they're super easy cards to make. It's the die cutting and the beautiful dies that make them such lovely cards. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. Thanks again for coming along and watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.